Hey, have you heard about my AI alter ego? That's right. Ask Alan Anything is now live, and we've trained it on my 13 books. We've trained it on over 200 podcasts. It has most of what's in here, not everything, but most of what's in here. And you can, when you're sitting around going, gee, I wonder what Alan would do in this situation, or I wonder what Alan would say in this situation. Well, now you can. Go to whatwouldalansay.com. Enter the coupon code podcast because you're going to get half off. It starts at only $10 a month. And now when you're thinking, I wonder what Alan say? Now you can actually ask. Go to whatwouldalansay.com, enter the coupon code podcast, and start asking me anything. How to take a niche that seems really, really narrow and turn it into a full-time business. Listen to this episode and see how. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, sales trainer, consultant, author, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have a little more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so happy to have my friend Brittany Branson on to talk about what she does. Hey, Brittany, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And for everybody listening here, we met recently at a conference. It was the NAC conference, North American Collective of MCs and DJs. And Brittany was doing a live painting, but also speaking to us. So the first thing as I walk in the room and I see an easel, I'm like, okay, what's going on over here? And Brittany came out with us and we went and we were doing our second line and stuff and taking a picture on the street. And then over days, which you'll tell everybody that was a blessing for you that it was over days.
Yes.
You put together this painting from what we did over there. And I thought that was wonderful because we watched it go there. So first of all, tell everybody, what do you do?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Brittany. I'm a destination live wedding and event painter. I currently live in Ashburn, Virginia, not too far outside DC, but primarily serve everywhere from Richmond to Long Island, the whole East Coast primarily, or completely out of state. And as a live wedding painter, I do just that. I get to show up to people's big, wonderful days. And I now offer two services, but the live painting is a big heirloom canvas painting featuring a moment of their choice. So like first kisses, first dances are super popular, but now really coming up and almost matching in popularity are the guest fashion illustrations. So those are little 5x7 quick illustrations of guests that essentially serve as a favor that they'll never toss in the garbage. They'll keep forever.
Absolutely. Not use it up like the jar of honey or whatever.
Exactly.
Not that we don't love our jars of honey, but when they're gone, they're gone.
When they're gone, they're gone.
It's kind of like the bottles of whiskey that we blend and I give to people. And I just had lunch with our friend yesterday and he keeps all the empty bottles. I'm like, Harold, they're all the same. The label just has a different number. He said, I know, but they were the gifts. Yeah, that's what it was. So let's start with this. How did you become a live event painter?
Yeah, sure. So prior to doing this for myself and doing it full time, I actually had a brief career in arts legislation and management. So to take it a little bit back further, I'm originally from New Jersey. Hey, came down to DC to go to George Washington University because I really wanted to be a political speechwriter. But came down here that was not for me. But I still had the interest, And so when I got out of college and it was time to craft a career, I basically learned that I could bridge everything that I loved. My first love, the arts, and then my interest for communication, political communication. So that's how I started my career. And right before I quit my 9-to-5 to do this, I was working for the DC government as a legislative and community affairs assistant. But then I met my best friend, Tim, who is a professional pilot. So right now he flies for UPS. And I realized we were not going to have much of a relationship if I kept a 9-to-5 because his schedule is wackadoodle and never a guarantee that we would get weekends off together. So it was just time to do something for myself that offered a bit more flexibility in terms of my schedule. But we actually had a live painter at our wedding in 2015, ironically also named Brittany. And I loved her. She was the only one I'd ever heard of. And even finding her and the service was a complete stroke of luck. And so once we got married and I decided to leave my 9 to 5 job, I was like, there's room for this. And our painting is proudly right there when you walk into our home. So I was like, I think this is just one, there's room in the industry to grow, but also the service meant a lot to me and meant a lot to us. So the idea of being able to provide it for my own
Mhm.
couples just really meant a lot. And so I jumped right in without any
As so many people do in the industry. So,
yes.
did you look for? Did you come up with it? Okay, we want to have a live painter, or did it you just stumble across it and go, "Wow, that's a great idea."
Stumbled across it, I think when so right now it's Washingtonian Weddings magazine, but it used to be Washingtonian Bride and Groom.
Hmm.
And I think they did one of the, on some of those editorial pages they
Yeah,
have clip outs of like,
yeah,
12 things on one page. And there was a little snippet of Brittany at work with like a blurb this big
yeah.
about what she was doing. And again, coming from an arts admin, I was like, oh, I can support an artist, but
Hmm.
it's also something my guests are going to be able to watch all
Right.
night. So yeah, it was completely lucky, but of course I'm so glad because it changed my life, but it also
Yeah.
gave me a piece I really love.
There you go. So you started doing it. You said, "Okay, I'm going to do that." All right. What did you do next? Like, how did you how did you actually start?
I did everything wrong.
Okay.
um, this was a hard lesson to learn, but well, let me back up and say what I really first started doing was offering other wedding art. So if you can, like, 2015, 2016, Pinterest age, alternative guest books were like really popular.
Okay.
This was the time of like using pet illustrations on cocktail napkins or bar signage was really taking off. So that's where I really started, was offering
Okay.
those sort of one-off day of wedding art things. I actually lacked the courage to really tell people, hey, I can do the bigger live wedding painting service live.
Mhm.
It really took my friends in the industry, if we were at a networking event, to introduce me as, hey, this is Brittany, she's the live painter, where I finally felt like I had to get over that fear of,
Right.
pitching myself. But then it was a slow roll because by the time I felt like my friends were pitching me as the one who could do this, I did not have a huge portfolio to really back it up. It took a long time,
Mhm.
which is a huge piece of advice I give to anyone now, is like practice in public before you really
Right.
put it out there. I think I would have gotten traction faster if I had really devoted to like building out a nice portfolio first.
Which in retrospect, you could have also said, "I'm going to offer this service for free." Because as you said, practice in
Yes.
public is doing it for free. Let me do your engagement part of it. Let me do this.
Yes.
And but really what it is it's not just the end result, which you have forever. It, like you said before, or people didn't pick up on it, is the guests to watch you doing it, which is for me, because I was a speaker at the same event, people are focused on whoever was speaking at that time. And if it wasn't me, I'm watching you in the corner going, "Oh, this thing is coming together here. This thing is building," right? So,
Yep.
um, how did you, and again, not talking numbers. So how did you decide when you did the first one? How'd you come up with the price?
Oh, goodness. How did I come up with the price? I think, honestly, I'm thinking back to, okay, by the time I was booking people on my own, I maybe knew of maybe two or three other artists at
Hmm.
that time. And I think I just looked at their pricing and just offered lower, for the
Right.
sake of
Right.
experience.
which I always say to people, when you're worried about competition, you were once the lower price competitor because that's what we think is our competitive
Correct.
advantage. Because you're like, I don't have the portfolio. They've been doing this longer. I should charge less. Meanwhile, your work could have been just as good or could have been better, right?
100%. Hard lesson learned 10 years
Right.
ago.
And just in general, in terms of pricing, it's a great lesson for people because we're in a service business, right? Even though you're giving a final product,
Right.
you're in a service business, and every price we come up with is made up, right? The low one you did at first, the higher one as you went along, whatever your prices are now, they're all made up, and you have to be okay with the value you're getting for the value you're giving. And a lot of us undervalue ourselves because, like, oh, that was a day's work. That's okay. And then here you are. How many years are you married now?
Oh, both 10 in business, 10 married.
Right, right. So 10 years of looking at this picture, which will be there, and then, somebody
Yep.
else will have this later, right? We'll have this. So, the value of it is not the value of your time. And that's a really important lesson for people.
Yeah.
And it's not the cost of the canvas, and it's not the cost of the paints and all that kind of stuff. It's the value. So,
Yeah.
um, the people that are hiring you, are these all high-end weddings?
No, actually, that's where I feel like I've further niched myself. And that was, I also think, another relatively hard lesson to learn is one thing I'm actually very proud of is I serve a wide variety of weddings. A few years ago, I was the most expensive vendor for a 20-person backyard wedding in Montana. They loved me and valued me enough to fly me out there. But then I've done NDA signing things where I was one piece of 200, like, and they were like,
Right. Right.
who
Right.
cares?
It's the 6 7 figure wedding. It's like whatever.
Just the yeah, truly just the add-on. But where
Right.
I've really found success is I call the oh my God, what do I tend to attract a lot of service-minded couples, so a lot of nurses, EMT, police, veterans, firefighter,
Mhm.
whatnot. And very often that's not a lucrative career. You're not going into that career
Right.
for the
Right.
paycheck.
Unfortunately, they don't get paid enough.
Unfortunately,
Right.
100%. And so often the weddings are, with this arbitrary,
Right.
spectrum in our industry, they're not luxury, but they value and love me enough to really make it work. And I don't take that for granted. And I'm very blessed and very appreciative of it. And I've actually found the higher end, more luxurious weddings are the ones who don't value me so much and very much treat me like the add-on, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You're the hired
yeah,
help then. You're the hired help.
exactly. And
Right.
that's not what I anticipated at one
Yeah.
point in my career
Yeah.
because I'm so far on the bottom of the totem pole. If you talk to especially like a planner or whatnot of where in priority the budget's going, I'm
Right.
either so low or not there at all. And so often that's what's reflected
Yeah.
working on that end of the spectrum.
Right.
So I very much have found my place with my service-minded
Right.
couples, and I love them.
Right. And this is part of niching is understanding who your target audience is. You have an inventory problem. You're painting
Yes,
live. It's you. You can only
just
be in
me.
one place at a time. That's it. I'm sure it's physically and mentally taxing because unlike the event that we were at where you had days to get this done,
Yes.
you have hours because they wanted it. It's the end of the night. It's done, right?
For me, yes. Yeah,
Right, right. And
absolutely.
then they get it framed and all. Is that how it goes? Or
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it.
right, right. So priorities is always where the money goes in a budget. And I love when you said that you were the most expensive thing at this 20-person wedding, and then other weddings, that you're out of not out of range, but you're out of the norm of their budget. Like
Yeah.
if they're hiring a good this, and this, and then they're spending for you, which let's face it, everything they spend on for a wedding is discretionary anyway,
Yep.
right? I've said this, and I will keep saying this until I stop speaking. There's no law in the world that says you have to throw a party. when you get
Right.
married. There's no law that says you have to have food or photos or video or music or flowers or dresses or invitations or anything. All you need is a license and someone who can legally perform that. Now, my son got married last year, and they got married at City Hall in San Francisco, and they assigned them an officiant who happened to have been wonderful, but we had 15 minutes and done. They were married.
Yep.
We didn't have to do anything else. We did not. They were married. That was it. They were married. Now we went to lunch and we got on the cable cars and we went out on a boat cruise for dinner, and then we had 30 people the next day and 60 the next day. But none of that was required. None of that.
Nope.
And what you do is certainly not required. But again, nothing is required, right? You don't have to have any of this.
Absolutely.
And it's why, some of the people that you've painted might have gotten their dress at a consignment store.
100%.
And some of them, it was a custom made one off, 5 figure, maybe more dress,
Yeah.
right? Or dress, tux,
Or
suit,
two.
what, or two. Well, exactly. But exactly. But again, it comes down to priorities. Now, those people still had it as a priority. It just wasn't on the top because otherwise you wouldn't have been there,
Yes.
right? And nobody
Oh,
would have
yeah.
been painting. So it's still there. But again, the idea of can I make something out of the niche is you focus on it, understand who you want to go after. And I know some other people in the industry who've done like you've done have said, yeah, I'll do the higher end one, but I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the people that appreciate me and the value that I bring. And you want to work for those people. You want to bring the most to those people. So
Yeah.
now you're also speaking. You're speaking at events, and you're. I think your website says you're helping artists and creatives thrive, right? What
Yeah.
does that mean? What how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is inspired by my background of I feel like my life has been interesting in that I've now lived on both sides of both being the advocate for artists and then being the artist herself.
Hmm.
And my I've always wanted to me the thriving comes when you bridge that, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
of you learn how to better advocate for yourself so that that frees up mental, physical, spiritual space, whatever you need in order to create better art. And I think this is what kind of sets me apart from a lot of visual artists is I'm not afraid to talk about the left brain side. I feel like a lot of artists are and no, you're not blaming them, living
Yeah,
in the right
yeah,
brain. But where true thriving comes is a beautiful marriage of the two. But
yeah. Well, but again, the difference between being a hobby and being a
yes.
business is when you get into that left brain side. My wife makes jewelry all the time. We've tried selling it. I made her an Etsy store. I told her get an Etsy store, and then she's like, "How do I do that?" So I got her an Etsy store. What do we do now? I said, "Well, now you need to take pictures of all the jewelry." So I took pictures of all the jewelry, and now we need to have descriptions of all that. So she stood over my shoulder, and I dictated as I typed in all these descriptions. I wasn't looking for another job, right?
Right.
I, but that's what had to get done. And then when the store when all the things expired, she just didn't renew them again. And yet she sits upstairs in our loft making jewelry all the time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, she made me some bracelets.
Nice.
Right.
Oh,
So
lovely.
these beaded ones, this one she bought me,
Yeah.
but the beaded ones over here. So
Amazing.
and I have some others. So because I was like, you're making bracelets for everybody, for you and your friends. How about me? What about here? And I was wondering if I just wasn't cool enough, to do that. So, but this is not a business, right? This is not a
Right.
business. This is art. This is art for art's sake. This is art for her pleasure. Gave her pleasure to make this art for me,
Yeah.
right? But there's the left brain just doesn't kick into, well, I need to, for a while there, I said, could you just sell enough to pay for the supplies? Maybe just sell enough.
Sure.
Right. And that worked for like a day. But then I don't even worry about it anymore. I support her art because
Yeah.
it's her art. And I go up and I see hundreds of bracelets and earrings and necklaces and whatever. And like, beautiful. It's beautiful,
And
but it's not a
also, oh,
business.
yeah, and I also just wanted to mention, like, that brings me back to something I feel like I'm putting in air quotes, did
Yeah.
wrong when I first started. Of when I came into the industry in 2015, I feel like our industry, there's buzzwords every few years, right? So right now, I do think it's luxury, but I feel
Mhm.
like the pendulum's swinging back towards we're going to come up with something new. But when
Mhm.
I started, the big thing was go full time. Like you're not truly a business or whatever unless you go full time with it. And I did way too early. And
Mhm.
what I always say now is it doesn't make you any less an artist. It doesn't make you any less a creative if it's not your full time thing. And there were certainly moments throughout my 10 years now doing this where I did take a part-time, for like I actually briefly worked for Wedding Wire for like a year and a half or two,
Mhm.
because at that time we were trying to buy a house. Like other life
Right.
goals came into play where I'm still growing this business. I'm proud of the growth, but there's an immediate need that needed help. And there's
Right.
no shame in that. Yet I think I felt a lot of shame for those first however many years.
Yeah.
So I always like to say, if this isn't your business, if it is and it's not full time, that's really okay. Like, do
Yeah.
not absorb the stressors to make it so when
Right.
life's stressful anyway. Don't
Right.
invite
Well,
more stressors in if you don't need to
right.
right now.
I know some people that have very successful wedding businesses, and yet they still have their Monday to Friday 9 to 5. And it's
100%.
because, and now some of them it's financially they want to have that and then have their other money. Some of them it's no, they do fine in their wedding business, but they love their job. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's the benefits or whatever there. And I can think of quite a few people that that's the case. It's still a real business. And the key is this is where the left brain has to kick in is you have to treat it like a real business. If you
Yes.
treat it like a sideline, it's a sideline. If you treat it like a business, it's a business. And that means investing in advertising and marketing and networking and all these things. And those take either time or money or both.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But if it's a real business, I like to say invest in your business the way you want others to invest in you. So
Yeah.
I just had somebody on, this guy Jeffrey, who wrote a book. He was he's retired now, but he was a photographer to the ultra wealthy, the
Hmm.
0.01% people. And it's funny because part of the conversation he said, like, having been around them, I don't want to be like them. But he said it's not. He said they're not who you think they are.
Sure.
There are some people that are feel like they're entitled and all that kind of stuff. He said, but
Yeah.
their lives are so complicated, that they need people to help run their life, and he said, I don't
Yeah.
want that kind of complication. I want to be able to shop at Prada. He said, I can shop at Prada, and I could have my personal shopper at Bergdorf Goodman, but I don't want to have their complication of their life. And that's what
Yep.
he's seen firsthand. So again, be careful what you ask for with that. Um, but luxury, you say, that's the buzzwords of luxury. But you just said, in that luxury wedding, you're a fraction of what they're spending on the whole thing, and you very often feel like you're being treated like the fraction.
Yeah.
And it may not intentionally be that. It's just like how complicated is that wedding now?
Correct.
That's spending this kind of money with all these things, and we all see it, whether it's the Bezos wedding or all these kind of things there. And some one camp says that's such a waste of money, another camp says look all the people that got employed because of that. Look at all those
Sure.
people that are working on that wedding. There's the two sides to that camp over there. But again,
Yeah.
if you're the uh, acrobatic performer at that wedding, you're a fraction too.
Oh, yes.
Because that's
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's gone. I just saw one. I don't know the country it was in, but it was this very ornate staircase, marble staircase, and these two ballerinas came dancing down the staircase and spun and did all this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
where's the couple? Like, where are they?
Oh, yeah.
And it took a while for the couple to come in. I'm like, okay, all right, not me,
Yeah.
but
And also, what I'll say with what in particular to what I do is at first, when I really started to strategically go after those kinds of weddings, another lesson I learned was they are very often treating their weddings as an opportunity to have things that they've never seen before. Now, if you
Mhm.
can imagine living in that world, that's rare, but it's possible.
Yeah,
But when it comes to art or custom art, they're very often invested in that world anyway.
right.
They're going to, Basel, Miami or whatever, they
Right.
probably have like real investments in collections. So for
Mhm.
someone like me, it's not as much a novelty.
Right.
Whereas for an amazing Marine vet who's marrying a nurse, they will treasure this forever. And they
Right.
may not ever get something that hyper custom ever again.
Right.
And that's just where I made the strategic decision of, you know what, though I think those are my people as opposed to trying to convince those who, don't may not see the noveltiness in me anymore or at
Right.
all, to try and get them to invest.
So do you keep your price at a certain point so that it's affordable for them, where you could actually charge more to others?
That's a really good question. My gut would say yes, and that's actually something I went through this year. But the way I always tackle this is, especially for us live painters, we're building out the spectrum right now. So like how I compare it is if you think of a wedding photographer, I think we all know wedding photographers charging 50,000, 5,500. And the
Hmm.
spectrum exists, and often it's a matter of finding your place in it.
Hmm.
Whereas for us, we're building it right
Yeah.
now, and we're constantly testing where the end of the spectrum is meant to
Right.
end. And that's been interesting and difficult to be a part of. And that's absolutely something I've struggle's not the word, but
No, no,
I
no. But it is a struggle. It's a struggle
yeah,
again because the pricing is all, like I said, it's all made up,
yeah,
and you're coming up with a number. My mind goes to a videographer friend of mine who purposely keeps her prices at a certain point because she wants to deal with certain people,
yeah,
and she knows that her work is right up there with people that charge double what she charges, but that in her mind, that would have her dealing with people that she doesn't want to deal with
right.
and she doesn't feel comfortable dealing with. And again, it's not a dig on those people. It's just that that's just not her people. She's
Sure.
from a blue collar background and she loves working with blue collar people because they're her people.
Yeah.
And she doesn't aspire for that. Whereas this Jeffrey, who the photographer, he grew up. He said it was not a great. I was not from an affluent family. Far from it. It was lower
Yeah.
middle class family, but he aspired that was his going to be his clientele. And if you listen to that episode with him, which aired I think a little bit before this, you'll hear him talking about, well, to do it, he went to the stores where they shopped and observed. And then when he
Yeah.
could, he would buy something, even though it was stretching to buy it. He would buy something to know what is this experience, the way they wrap it, the way they walk around the counter and hand it to you. That the
Yeah.
packaging matters, that everything matters there. The smallest purchase is treated just as well as the big purchase, right? All these things. But he
Yeah.
lived in their world to see what do they expect. And then in terms of pricing, again, pricing still needs to be fair because high end people, they know what things cost. They know
Sure.
what things cost. A lot of people getting married, they've not thrown big parties and things. The higher end people, they throw parties and they've hired photographers and they've done stuff like that.
Oh
So
yeah.
they understand. But the value of art, physical art that you're doing, one-off things. My younger son is an artist. Right? He's a graphic designer by trade, but he's an artist. And I remember being in a gallery with him one time. We were in Omaha, Nebraska. We were going to be doing Habitat for Humanity, so we flew out there, and we're in a gallery, and I'm looking, and there were price tags. And I said, "Is that the right number?" And he goes, "I don't know." I said, "Right, I don't know either." I said, "You know it's the right number when somebody buys it because
Yeah.
anytime we raise our prices, we're always afraid, is that the right price?" And then the first person who says yes validates that. And
Yeah.
then the second one validates it again. And then you keep going there. And then you start wondering, did I go high enough? Should I have gone higher? Right. And I
Oh
remember
yeah.
one time, somebody we saw me at a conference, came to me afterwards, said, "I want you to come and train my team." And it was a really prestigious museum in New York, and I we took out our calendars and we picked a date, and we hadn't talked not money, hadn't talked any of that, and we had that, we had it scheduled. Okay, I'm going to come, and I said, "Oh, by the way, you didn't ask me how much." And she said, "Yeah, okay, how much?" And I told her, and she said, "Yeah, that's fine." Right. And some people say you should have charged more. It's like that was my price.
Yeah.
I charge my price, and when I get my price, I'm not unhappy that I didn't get more. I charge my price. Now, that
Right.
might make me think if I get it too easily,
Right.
then maybe I should raise it up there, right? And don't undervalue yourself with that. But again, if you're
Right.
happy with the number and they're happy, then it's good. But you're talking about we're setting this. You're in you have to be in a small community of live event painters.
Yeah, and we've exploded. I mean, it looks like we've exploded a bit, especially since COVID and TikTok, because a few live painter colleagues went viral and that
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
exposed the service. But what's also interesting is I feel like we're living through the period that so many other vendor categories have already gone through of there's an explosion of interest in jumping into it, but it's gonna weed, the herd's gonna thin at
Yeah.
some point, and who's really going to make it by treating their business like a
Right.
business, and
Right.
that's been interesting.
Right. And people who love painting and who are good at it, when it becomes a job, maybe it doesn't become fun. Right.
100. Oh, I've been going through that of I've been noticing with me, it's impossible for me to not paint under pressure anymore. It's impossible for me to like sit quietly and do something, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That's interesting. See, for me,
Yeah.
I played in bands when I was in high school and college, and people who follow me on social see me put up me playing piano videos. Were you at the bar when I was playing
Oh,
in? Yeah.
no, I was
Okay.
standing outside.
Okay. So when I was playing in New Orleans, because my friends went up to the band and said, can he play with you? And they said yes. So I did.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I think it would ruin it for me somewhat if it was because I had to, because I'm getting paid. I love playing and I volunteer, and I just got voluntold I'm performing at the cabaret night at the Professional Speakers Association of the UK and Ireland when I'm going to be in the UK next month. I got voluntold to present last year, so I got voluntold to present again this year. So I'm going to do, and that's fun for me, right? It's still
Yeah.
work. It's still work because I was trying to think, how do I do this, not just sitting playing the piano. And I came up with sing along songs, but everybody only knows the first verse and the chorus and then doesn't know any of the rest of the lyrics. So I did a mashup. I did 5 or 6 songs where I only did the first verse and the chorus, went to
That's
another
cute.
song, went to another song. So now I'm going to do that again. I'm trying to come up with the 5 or 6 songs to do that
Sure.
where I can get everybody singing along. But again, it's not a job. It is work, but it's not a job. And sometimes I just sit and play the piano and it's for myself. And sometimes I'm playing for others, or if I'm lucky, I get to play with a band sometimes. And, but it's
Yeah.
interesting, you can only paint under pressure.
Yeah.
Um, you can't just slow it down. Right.
Nope.
So
Nope.
how did you paint for us over 4 days then?
You'd be surprised how difficult it was for me.
To walk away from the canvas.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And to it was a blessing in terms of being able to slow down. Like it
Hmm.
would, but also I will say because there were so many lovely speakers of just having someone and something to focus my
Focus
brain
on.
on,
Right.
probably an ADHD thing
Yeah.
that was really helpful. But if it was just me in a room for 4 days, forget
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's like me writing a report. I have people say, hey, could you review my website, send me a report? No, no, no. I will get on Zoom and do it with you, give you a recording and a
right.
transcript and all that, but no, because part of the reason I'm not in corporate America anymore is because I don't like writing reports. I just don't. I'll
Yeah,
write books. Got 13, right? I'll write
there you
books.
go.
I'll do podcasts, but no, no, that's tedious. And again, it's not a
Yeah.
matter of are you good at it or not. It's a matter of does that give you joy? And
Yes.
it gives me joy to play the piano. It gives me joy to do this. It
Yep.
doesn't give me joy to sit there and write a report. It's like, "Ugh, this is like if I had hair, I'd pull it out." But there you go.
Yes.
So so what's next?
100%.
What's next for you? What's next for you? What are you working on? What are you thinking that you can take this to? Is there a something else?
Oh man. So, I just graduated with my master's in arts management in May.
Woo.
Thank you. It was a 8 to 12 year span,
Okay.
but finally did it. And I want to do something with that. I don't see myself returning to a 9 to 5,
Hmm.
although of course never say never because I think we've all had friends in this industry after so many years. If the right opportunity pops up and it brings them joy,
Right.
awesome. But I definitely do want to teach. So I'm always actively looking for like adjunct professorships or something just to start
Hmm.
doing, in academia, especially with arts entrepreneurship, something I don't think is talked about enough, especially in the traditional visual arts
Yeah.
and humanities sense. So
Mhm.
that's something I really want. I'd say that's priority number
Okay.
one. And especially as like, not to get to whatever, but some of the experiences I had in my non-wedding industry past life were with interning for the National Endowment for the Arts and Humanities, and now they're both essentially gone and not funded. And
Yeah.
at a federal level, at a state level, the arts and humanities are just being decimated.
Yeah.
And I know there's a place for me in navigating that, however that
Yeah.
looks. So I'd say that's priority number one.
Okay.
um, I can
And that,
always serve amazing couples this way, but
right.
I feel like we're heading towards like a place where we all have to kind of step into where do others and what do other things need us.
Right.
I can't tell you what that looks like right now, but that's
Yeah.
sort of priority number one.
No, that's great. I mean, we were lucky with our sons that arts and music were still important in their high
Yeah.
schools. And my younger son went to Temple University, Tyler School of Art, again, really tough to get
Yes.
into. And
Oh,
they
yes.
they worked them hard. And they, again, it's just amazing the education there, but also how art and music fits into other parts of our lives, how that part of our brain fits
Oh,
into it. And
sure.
yeah, it's a shame that that's how people think to cut. And we're not going to get into politics here because we
That's
don't
a
have
whole
any,
other podcast.
well, we don't have any alcohol right now. So, I only talk about that when we have alcohol.
Where's the whiskey?
Well,
Where's
it's
the
here.
bourbon?
Well, see
Okay.
that little barrel back there. Those of you not
Awesome.
not watching can't see it, but that little barrel's been aging since let's see, that's about 3 weeks. That one's 3 weeks. There's a jar over there that's been going for a little over a month now. So that one I'm going to taste soon. We'll see.
So
But
when they're ready, we'll
then they're ready. Then we'll talk about that. So, what I thought you might have said is that you having the left brain, could you create a business where you would send out other painters and
Oh, I've absolutely thought about some sort of agency
agency?
model, associate model. It's
Mhm.
always there. I'm not sure if I'm there yet to manage people.
Right. Right. I think what I think the need is there because the artists are the left brains, are the right brains, and they don't think that way. And having somebody else to be able to do that
Yeah.
would allow them to get the kind of income that they deserve for what they're doing, and yet have
Yeah.
somebody else take care of it. Because, like in the speaking business, my friend Bruce Thurkel, sorry, David Avern, he always says, you know, the job is getting the gig. It's not doing
Yes.
the work, it's getting the gig, right? Getting the speaking gig, the training gig, whatever. For you, selling the wedding, getting the wedding, finding those people, getting the wedding, that's the job. And then you
Yeah.
get to do the fun part, right? And you could just take this through any part of the wedding and event industry. The
Yeah.
fun part is actually making it happen, but everything that leads up to it is the work.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
working on my presentations for Wedding MBA, and I'm going to put in 20 to 30 hours for each. I'm doing 3 of them.
Yeah.
That's the job, right? That's the work.
Oh, yes.
And what you see is 45 minutes, right?
Right.
That's what you're going to see there. So, all right, we're out of time here. Brittany, thank
Sure.
you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing. If people want to find out more about you, they should go to where?
Sure. Start at bybrittnybranson.com. Wedding stuff, speaking stuff, it's all there. And I'm quite active on Instagram, same handle, by Brittany Branson.
And that's BY, not BYE.
Correct.
But it's in
That's
the
a
show
different
notes.
business.
That's a different business. That's a different business. But it's in the show notes. If you want to find out more, there you go. Brittany, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Alan Berg. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest, please go to podcast.alanberg.com and you can make your suggestion there. You can also do it at Ask Me Anything, which is a button on that page, or just email me at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. And if you'd like to find out how I can help you with sales training, website review, consulting, or speaking for your group or organization, possibly at no cost to the organization, contact me directly, Alan at weddingbusinesssolutions.com. Thanks again for tuning in.